Hello and welcome to People and Profit, where we look at how business shapes our world. I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up, a snap election in the United Kingdom, but could the campaign end up damaging the British economy and its position in the Brexit talks? President or portfolio manager, we'll look at the massive shareholdings that will be controlled by the winner of the French elections. And we've a special report from Burma looking at why foreign investors seem to be losing interest in this emerging market. First up though, British voters are going to the polls at a time that its economic future looks particularly uncertain. Brexit negotiations are just starting, and while the economy has remained resilient so far, the Bank of England expects inflation to rise to nearly 3% next year. A strong mandate for Prime Minister Theresa May, if she's re-elected, will help her position in talks with the European Union.
Despite predictions of immediate financial and economic danger, since the referendum, we have seen consumer confidence remain high, record numbers of jobs, and economic growth that has exceeded all expectations. Let us tomorrow vote for an election. Let us put forward our plans for Brexit and our alternative programmes for government, and then let the people decide.
So what does this mean for the UK economy? To discuss this, I'm joined by Professor Iain Begg from the European Institute at the London School of Economics. Professor, thanks for speaking to us. Even with the current strong poll ratings that Theresa May has, there is an element of risk in this. Perhaps, if not politically, perhaps economically, are there risks?
I don't see much risk because the markets are already betting on the fact that she's likely to win and win comprehensively. And if that happens, then it, if anything, strengthens her hand in negotiations and makes it easier for her to do the deal that she wants. So no, I don't see significant risks to the economy.
When it comes to the Brexit negotiations, the process is only getting underway now. What will this change in Theresa May's position going into those talks with her European partners?
I think mainly what it changes is the risk that she is derailed by opposition inside her own camp. If she's able to secure a large majority, and that is essentially the bet she's making, that she's going to trounce the opposition in this election she's called, if she succeeds in that, then she's going to have the capacity to override those on either the hard Brexit side or even on the pro-European side who say, well, couldn't we do it another way? She will, in other words, be given the mandate to be her own woman in the negotiations.
Do you think that it increases the chance of a harder Brexit if she has that strengthened negotiating position?
Well, I'm inclined to move away from the terminology of hard and soft, because what Britain wants to achieve is a friendly Brexit. And she's already ruled out what used to be the definition of soft, which was staying in the single market. So she's decided that Britain will be outside the single market, will control migration, will lose the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. That's already settled, more or less. But what she wants is something friendly that she can sell to the public as being a very good deal for Britain, rather than something hostile, which is going to get in the way of Britain's progress and future. So I would change the axis from hard-soft to friendly-hostile.
Do you think there will be people in other European capitals and in Brussels looking at Theresa May and perhaps being more worried about the Brexit negotiations if she comes back with this renewed mandate?
I doubt they'll change their minds. In fact, they may even to some degree welcome it, because they'll be able to deal with somebody who isn't going to come to the table and say, well, unfortunately, what I hope to deal with you on has been torpedoed by one of my own members of Parliament or by the House of Lords Committee. If she secures a mandate, it enables her to negotiate far more effectively and to deliver what she negotiates than if she was left wondering about her narrow majority and the possibility that half a dozen of her members would, even on her own side, would stop what she wants to do. So I think in many respects, the other side ought to welcome it as a more straightforward negotiation if she has a real mandate.
Theresa May, in making the announcement that she was calling this election, pointed to the strong and solid position the British economy is in. How solid is her assessment of the position of the UK at the moment?
The Brexit side has clearly dumbfounded those who projected things would be doom and gloom by now. We've had 9 months since the referendum last year, and in that period, the economy has barely faltered. It's more or less chugging along the way it was expected to go last March. That's not to say there aren't risks ahead. There will be risks if inflation picks up a bit, which it tends to do following a devaluation. If real wages don't keep up with the rise in prices, then you will find the consumer who has kept the British economy going so far will find it harder to keep the economy motoring as much as it used to. And there are going to be some question marks of companies relocating, saying, well, we need to move a few jobs from the UK to a continental financial centre or even to across the Atlantic to New York for regulatory reasons. If that sort of thing starts to take off, there are risks. Plus, a bad trade deal over the medium and longer term would be very damaging to the British economy.
Theresa May has picked a very economically strategic time as well as a very politically strategic time to call this election because, as you say, those risks haven't manifested themselves yet in the economy. Is she also, do you think, playing a long game to try and make sure that if there is a downturn, that they'll still be in power for when things might pick up?
There's certainly that consideration, but it also means that she can afford to concede a bit more at this stage. For example, on the tricky question of EU finances, we've been told there's a massive divorce bill being prepared by Michel Barnier. She can now negotiate and say, well, OK, well, I can be a bit accommodating on that because I have my mandate from a new parliament. All this, by the way, on the assumption that she achieves what she set out to do, which is to achieve a parliamentary majority much bigger than she has at present. And although most people are taking that for granted at the moment, we need to watch how the election campaign unfolds because she will be seen to have been double dealing in saying, I rule it out and now opportunistically I'm going for it.
Is Brexit going to be the only issue discussed in this election campaign? Are there other economic issues, for example, that you think are going to take centre stage?
Well, there's been no British election since the beginning of time that hasn't focused on something called the National Health Service. It's our national obsession. So I'd be very surprised if the Health Service didn't come straight back to the top of the agenda, particularly for the opposition side, where it's been seen over the years as a card that the Labour Party and the Scottish Nationalists and even the Liberal Democrat Party can play in trying to persuade the British population. And also the plight of the economy tends to be a high-profile issue. So, but no, it will not be only Brexit.
OK, we'll have to wait and see how that develops. Professor Iain Begg from the London School of Economics, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Now, there are a host of major decisions facing whoever becomes the next president of France. Apart from picking a government and deciding on policy, they'll also become the de facto manager of one of Europe's biggest share portfolios. The French state owns shares worth around 100 billion euros in 1,800 public and private companies. It's a lot of money, and many of the shareholdings also have strategic importance for the country. William Hildebrandt's here with more details. Will?
Stephen, most of that portfolio, some 77 billion euros, is invested in companies listed on the French stock market. Billions in utilities like EDF and Engie, but also telecoms firms like Orange and the aeronautics giant Airbus. Now, these stakes are part of a strategy that is more than a century old to thwart foreign takeovers, prop up struggling companies, and offer high dividends to taxpayers. But recently, the portfolio's results have lagged behind the markets, gaining on average just 2.8% from 2010 to 2015, versus 10% for France's 120 most traded stocks, with critics pointing to controversial rescue packages for nuclear giant Areva and car maker Renault, while some question EDF's role in the UK's new Hinkley Point nuclear plant. One reason for the underperformance is a political pressure to protect jobs. Of the EU's four biggest economies, French state-owned companies easily employ the most people, almost at 800,000. And that's a figure that's even higher than that from the US. So whoever replaces François Hollande as president will choose whether to expand or trim the portfolio. Downsizing could allow a more focused investment strategy while giving businesses greater independence, but that likely means job cuts in the name of profitability. Critics say the government's demand for high dividends pits its political leverage against long-term commercial gains, arguing that some of the portfolio's funds would be better invested in education, security, or paying off France's €2 trillion national debt. Stephen?
Well, thank you very much for that. It's been just over a year since Aung San Suu Kyi became the de facto leader of Burma. It's a country undergoing massive political and economic changes. But there was a 30% fall in foreign direct investment into Burma last year, and investors remain worried about protectionist laws. Our correspondent Clovis Casali reports.
Inside an old colonial building, Burma's first ever stock exchange. It was launched a year ago, but the trading floor struggles to attract more than a handful of curious visitors. Only 4 companies are listed, and the law prevents foreign ones from taking part.
Without foreigner participation, our stock market will not be active very much. Foreigners are very interested to purchase because Myanmar is a very emerging country, a lot of potential.
During Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi's 1 year in office, foreign direct investment dropped by 30%, with some blaming unclear regulations. The construction industry has been hard hit, especially in the economic hub Rangoon, where new malls and modern apartment blocks are being built. This luxurious 3-bedroom flat cost $5,000 a month, and the project had to be entirely financed by Burmese investors.
Foreigners got scared after the 2015 ban on high buildings like condos. But the government has changed the law again, so now we hope it will bring back investment from abroad.
In an effort to boost foreign investment, the government is modernising the corporate laws that have been in place since 1914.
There used to be 2 pieces of legislation which they have compiled into one to treat foreign investment and domestic investment on an equal playing field. This allows for tax incentives and also access to long-term leases of land.
The democratic transition means huge opportunities for investors. But 2016 was disappointing for business under Aung San Suu Kyi. According to the World Bank, Burma recorded then its slowest growth rate in 5 years.
Well, that's it from us for now. If you've any thoughts on the stories that we've been covering, get in touch on Facebook at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewsStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.